I am Sean Ritter along with Eric Tasker. We are separate today, but we had a lot of stuff to talk about. And we both just spent, we call it the rutcation. We were out deer hunting last week. And what we experienced, I think is great because it's a tale of two different hunts in two different areas of the state and two different theories or ways to go about them. And we'll get to the outcomes of these hunts and what happened, and maybe some heartbreak involved in some triumphs involved in others. But, don't forget, Tailgate Talk is brought to you by friends at Buck Rub Outfitters. Of course, they're the ones that make all this possible and all this happen as far as bow hunt, outfitting us with, not only great bows that they sell there, but they service and amazing great products. They've got ranges there. We've done a lot of sighting in and stuff out there, and you can do the same. Fantastic staff, Kaz and the whole crew, just off of Silver Nail Road in Pewaukee. You can look them up online, buckrubarchery.com. But I want to know how you feeling today, Tasker. How you feeling?
Well, I think I'm finally past the melancholy of this last week, but the end of it was a little disappointing, which we'll get into later. But I'm back in action here. It's the busiest time of the year for us at work, so it's just I've got a million things to do the next 2 weeks. So that's kind of got my mindset completely shifted away from hunting already. And a lot to talk about. I know that we were kind of exchanging messages throughout the week, and you were kind of getting updates as things were going down out in the woods by me, and same for you. And hey, I think it was, all in all, I want to say it was the best deer season that we've had up to this point in terms of just everything that's happened. So that's always something to just be happy about. And, as we'll talk about, it didn't end the way that I wanted it to, but, it was great. It was a great 9 days that we were up there. The first two jaunts that we did up there were also good. So, I can't really complain about my bow season.
That's good stuff. Now, you actually had an encounter while you were up hunting this weekend. In fact, we talked about an encounter back last week with Dalton Roach, the St. Louis Cardinals AA pitcher, that had the bear climb the tree stand with him. Now, it wasn't a bear that you encountered, but you want to talk about what you saw?
Yeah, so we were out there. We happened to have too much to drink the night before, so we slept in. We hadn't been seeing deer early morning anyways, so we decided to just, go out. We got out around noon that day. We'd been sitting for a while, and all of a sudden I've got this clearing that is like kind of southwest of me or southeast of me. And I've seen a lot of deer funnel through that way, kind of coming from the east and kind of heading down this, but it's a perfect alleyway that I've got. And I was looking away. All of a sudden I look up and I'm like, oh, that's something that is directly looking my direction. And it's for sure not a deer. So sure enough, takes a couple steps. And initially I thought it was a coyote, but it was not. It was definitely a wolf. And I've got a couple of videos, which I posted on my Instagram about that. And sure enough, it came like kind of trotting. It took a couple different stops. And, what was surprising for me is that where it stopped was only about 10 yards away from my dad's gut pile that he had. And it didn't even acknowledge it at all. I was thinking for sure it was going to stop there, kind of sniff around a little bit and see what was going on there and maybe just kind of check it out and maybe eat some of it. I don't know. That's just what I was assuming would happen. And sure enough, it stopped at about 52 yards, 53 yards by me. And I was videotaping, and I kind of edited the clips that I had because it was kind of moving around and I was trying to get it on camera. And the last full video that I had without editing it, you can see I just dropped the phone drops out of the view of the wolf. And I thought I was going to have to shout over to my dad because, as we talked about, my dad is only about, 150 yards maybe away from me. And he's in a ground blind, and I was at least up in a tree. So I was very comfortably 30 feet in the air, 50 yards away. But it was walking directly at my dad. And he said that it got to about 35 or 40 yards from him, but never really noticed them, never smelled them, never anything. and he was shook by it. I mean, it was just kind of funny to talk to him because we've got our walkie-talkies that we talk like usually every 2 hours, and yeah, he was like, I think I peed 4 times in the last hour, and we're definitely getting out of here early today. So we ended up getting out of the tree and out of the woods about 5:30, and it was the first time I've ever walked out of the woods with an arrow knocked in my bow. Not that that was really going to do anything because it'd be sure hard to shoot at something that's
Right, I'd rather
running.
just hold the arrow like a spear.
I know, right? And so that was crazy. You know, I mean, we know that there's a wolf concern in the state of Wisconsin, and in all of the cameras that we've ever had out there, we've had coyotes on our cameras, but we've never had a wolf. So that was it was cool to see, but it was also kind of like, well, I don't think I'm going to see anything else for the rest of the day.
You know, I saw the video and you said it too, and I struggled to look at it and get it because to me, the biggest tell for wolf to coyote, because you can get big coyotes, is the face.
Yeah.
And typically, coyotes have that longer snout. The wolf and that one was very confusing to me because it, like, I look at one, I'm like, oh, that looks like it's got a longer snout. That's definitely a coyote. And then I look back again, I'm like, well, maybe it's not that long. So, like, I'm still on the fence, with what
I
it is.
know.
But either way, it was a very large dog.
Yeah, and my dad said when he saw it, he said the face was like the size of an average pumpkin. So he said that it was a pretty good size head, which that tells me that there's no way that it was a coyote then.
I would agree with that.
So, because I was thinking the same thing, because when I sent that video to you and when I sent that video to Sherry, I thought for sure it was. You know, I mean, it's kind of deceiving looking from up above and at 53 yards, 50 plus yards, you know, the actual size of it.
Mhm.
But I just, yeah, I mean, but my dad and I showed my uncles the video too, and they're like, yeah, it's definitely a wolf. So, um, so yeah, I mean that was it was just one of the many stories that I have from this past 9 days of
The
deer hunting.
video, if you want to check it up on our Instagram at On the Tailgate, and of course, if you want to check out last week's episode of the show, if you missed it, I mentioned Dalton Roach and his experience with a bear climbing up a tree, grabbing him. That's up on demand on the iHeartRadio app. Pretty cool listen. Also had Nick Hoffman from Nick's Wild Ride talking about saving outdoor spaces with us. So it was kind of cool last week to still get in a fun show with some awesome guests, which we've got some more planned coming up soon in the future. But we've got to get to the tale of two hunts because you were hunting in the Eau Claire area. I
Yep.
was hunting in southeast Wisconsin. Two different techniques of how we go about hunting. You know, I'm a sticks and stand mobile person, and you've got the climbing stand that kind of stay in the same area. Benefits to both, downsides to both, how both of our hunts worked out. We had different outcomes, but similar outcomes, I think, to some extent of how our hunt
We
went.
did.
Do you want me to talk about my story first and go about your hunt later, or do you want to go first and take the floor with how your week of hunting went?
Well, why don't I'll start?
Okay.
I can go first. So we got up there Friday night. First full day that we had was on Saturday. Saturday afternoon, I was talking to my dad on the walkie-talkies. You know, the first day that we were out there, we always go back and forth on the walkie-talkies, just kind of check in, you know, anything going on. You know, it's a lot different than gun season where we obviously know if somebody's shot or not. Which is interesting because I'll tell you about my dad's harvest on Tuesday it was, and how that is no longer the case because I could definitely hear a crossbow fire in the woods.
Yeah.
But you know, it started off great. I've got a kind of a log here of all the deer that I saw. I just kind of kept track what direction they were coming from, what time did I see them. So 7:05 a.m. right off the bat, right at daybreak. Had a tail that I saw through the woods. It was right about shooting hours, and you know, it was kind of interesting thinking back to that vortex optics conversation that we had, you know, talking about low light and just some of the inlet outlet diameters of binoculars. I could see the tail walking through, but I could not focus in on what it actually was. So I'm thinking, all right, well, this is a great start. 8:15, a doe at 28 yards. I botched it. My rangefinder my release flipped over on my rangefinder, made a big sound, and it was just right at like 25, 28 yards. So it spooked off. So that was unfortunate.
By the way, you mentioned real quickly
That-
the conversation with Mark Boardman, Vortex Optics. That is also up on demand on the app, too. So if you want to go back and listen to that, some great information that Mark gave about, you mentioned the low light stuff of the difference in optics of how it can improve and to better leverage your specific hunting situations and what all the numbers mean and things like that. I just think it was a really great piece of information. You go check it out from Mark Boardman of Vortex Optics with us a couple weeks ago.
9 o'clock, I had a scrub buck that walked in. Spike, which I told myself I was not going to shoot a spike because I knew there were enough deer that were out there. 10:30, another deer, 135, nice big shooter 6 came walking in from the southwest. And what's interesting about that portion of where I look out on my stand, that's directly where my dad is. He did not see that deer walk in, but he did see where that wolf walked out. So maybe he just didn't catch it from where it actually walked in, or maybe it was just too thick. But there's like a 75 to 90 degree angle where it's pretty thick and covered. So I felt really good about where it was walking in from. And I've got this big oak tree that's just maybe 5 feet away from my stand that I was protected from that deer. And, I don't know what it was, but it caught something and it spooked off. And I was thinking, all right, this is really going to shape up to be a great week. I mean, I've seen a ton of deer already. I've got a shooter that walked in already. And I'm feeling great about everything that's coming on. So later that afternoon, I'm telling my dad, I'm talking to my dad on the walkie-talkies, and I'm telling him that we've got, that I just saw a nice buck, and then all of a sudden comes walking in this doe, and I'm like, gotta go, don't say anything. Just walked right out in front of my stands, 32 yards, perfect double lung shot. And, it just unfolded so quickly. As I've told you, bow hunting is so dang hard that, we kind of talked about my mindset that I go through as I see a deer and my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, and how I got to shift number 5 to number 1, which is getting the camera set up and ready. It happened so quick that I just could not get all of the pieces in play. And I'm like, number 1 is getting a deer. It doesn't matter if I get it on camera or not, or any of that other accessory stuff. The main thing is putting a good shot on a deer and being able to make a harvest. So I just kind of threw all of that stuff to the wind, and I just kind of put that together. And so we got one in the bag Saturday, first full day. Sunday we saw deer. I saw deer on Sunday. Monday was another good day that we saw deer. Then Tuesday it must have been about 10:30 in the morning. All of a sudden I hear this big commotion over by my dad's stand, and I see a buck screaming at me. And I heard him shoot. I heard the deer get hit, and it ran, and it died probably 35 yards in front of my stand. So, of course, we hopped right on. My dad's like, you will not believe this. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this buck is at 12 yards in front of my blind, and he was able to get it. He was able to get his crossbow up and put it right behind the front shoulder and double lung and exploded the heart. It was just the absolute quickest way to make a harvest on a deer. So I come to find out that it was my dad's first ever deer with a bow. And after 40 something years,
Wow.
it was kind of a surreal moment for me, because I'm always happy for my dad to shoot a deer. But, I'll never forget going up to him, and I posted this, and I know you saw that, just going up and giving my dad a big hug and telling him, nice shooting, Dad. It's just something that I'll never, ever be able to it's not something you can ever relive, and it's just something that you'll always be able to remember and appreciate.
That's what it's all about, spending time with family, friends, loved ones, whatever it be. But, especially for a father-son, you could have that moment. Like, I'm like feeling like I want to get tears just like thinking about that, and how that had to feel in that moment. And like, y'all will both get to have that forever. And the fact that it's been 40 years of archery hunting and never have harvested with a bow, that just is a testament to the difficulty of archery hunting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I won't say anything more about it because I will cry. But it's such a cool moment. And it was great to be able to do that. We pulled the deer over by his blind. We sat the rest of the day. We were able to have a celebratory cocktail or quite a few after that. And, it was really cool. But, the best part of the week or the worst part of the week was, I was thinking all week it started to warm up for us. So we kind of were running out of that kind of cold snap that we've been anticipating for the last couple of weeks now that we've talked about. Didn't see any deer on, I think it was Thursday. I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday. But the Saturday was our last full day that we were going to be able to get out there and sit. I'm wearing my Matthews archery hat right now. I've been wearing camouflage hat all week. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to change this up a little bit. I'm going to throw on my Matthews hat. I'm going to just see if this is going to be my good luck charm. And about 11:15 on Saturday, I did a little rattle sequence. I hit the grunt call a couple times. And for the first time after being in the stand since daybreak at 6:30, I stand up and I'm facing north, facing towards my tree. For the first time all day, I'd been standing that way for about 10 minutes. And I've been thinking all week, you know what? I'm going to talk about this on Tailgate Talk because I don't think that grunts work. I don't think that rattles work. And I don't think that doe bleeds work because I've never had a deer react to it.
I don't use any of them.
Something that I can see out in the distance that I try to call in, I've never had a deer react to it.
The only difference that I'll say, and I'll bring it up when I tell my story, is I don't have grunt, any of that stuff. I think if I had a grunt call, I would have done things differently than I did. And that's all. I'll leave it right now. I don't have it, but I think I'm going to add it to the arsenal just specifically for a scenario that I was in yesterday.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm standing there facing for 10 minutes, and all of a sudden I see this big, gorgeous, at least 8-pointer. And when I see it, it's at 20 yards right out in the open clearing, right where I shot the doe on Saturday. And I'm thinking, hell yeah, it's go time, baby. So fortunately, I was facing the tree. I was able to quickly grab my bow. I had my rangefinder, and I was fortunately able to get a couple ranges on him. The first time that I ranged him was 32 yards, and I noticed that it was going to be continuing on a path where I'd seen a lot of deer come out. So I ranged a few times out in front of where I thought it was going to be, got it at 42 or 43 yards, set my floating pin, gave it a little it stopped. I was able to set my pin and everything, and I sent an arrow. I saw the arrow skip off of trees behind it, like fallen branches behind it, but the deer kicked really hard. So I'm thinking, okay, I think I put a good shot on it. It might be a little low, but you know what? I'm going to get out of the tree, and all I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to find my arrow and I'm going to see what happens, because I knew it didn't crash. So I knew it wasn't down close by, so I felt safe about going and at least checking the arrow. So I get on the walkie-talkie. My dad walks over. By the time he got there, I found my arrow, and I saw that I had a total pass-through. So I'm thinking, okay, it's not as heavy of blood as what I had with the doe on Saturday, but it is a total pass-through, and I do believe that I put a good shot on it. So we take a couple steps, and there's big blood scatter everywhere. So I'm thinking this deer's got to be down somewhere. We're gonna track a little bit, and if we feel like we're kicking it up, this is about 45 minutes after I shot it. Then kick it up. We're gonna just back out. We're gonna call my uncle, have him come over. So we've got 3 sets of eyes, and we ended up tracking. It crossed over the road. We tracked probably 500 yards with various different areas of big scatters of blood. And after we tracked, we just figured, you know what? I don't know if we found a couple beds with blood pooling in it. We weren't sure if we were kicking it up or if it was just bedding down and resting, and then it got up and continued to move. But we were like, you know what? It's going to be cool enough tonight. I think we're going to be all right to let this deer sit. We're going to come back with my cousins that were up there. So then we're going to have 4 or 5 sets of eyes instead of just 2 or 3. And came back out on Sunday, and we tracked it for probably another 7, 8, 900 yards. We walked through muck up above our boots in a swampy area. We got to a big open clear cut, and we finally didn't have blood anymore. And we just figured, you know what? I mean, we put 7 hours into tracking this deer, and I just finally made the decision that, you know what, it obviously wasn't a good enough shot, that I was just going to let this deer go. And if it's obviously made it this far, regardless of how much blood is spilled, that, you know, I think that these deer are so dang resilient that I just think that it's probably going to be fine. And the shot must have been farther back than what I thought. Maybe I just didn't hit any vitals. But, you know, it was so heartbreaking, and it was so sad. And I sent you and Sherry the same message, just saying, you know, we put over a mile of tracking into this deer, 7 hours of looking, and you know what? If we have not found it by this point, you know, there's a good chance that this deer is going to be able to survive. And you know, just unfortunate. That's the unfortunate, sad part of bow hunting, is that it's literally a matter of game. It's literally a game of inches. Mm-hmm. Where if that shot was just 3 inches up higher, or 2 inches up higher, it would have certainly been a double lung shot. I have no doubt about that. And, you know, it's just the way that it goes. And, you know, it's sad to even talk about, because that's not why you or I or many of us bow hunters are out there, is to wound an animal. That's not ever what we want to do.
Right.
But, you know, that's just the unfortunate reality of doing this sometimes, is that, you know, even if you're just off a hair, it can be a matter of life and death, literally. So it was a great week, man. And it was cool to be able to get a shot on a really, really gorgeous mature deer. And it ended in a heartbreak. I mean, I don't know how else to wrap it up.
Well,
so
I do have one theory about that deer that I don't know if it will help or not help the situation of how you're feeling with that outcome. Because you've shared with me, you know, we were texting the whole time, pictures of the arrow. And I took a look, and there were some white hairs on it, which typically you think white hairs be like belly. You're thinking like gut shot, things like that.
Right.
And then I remember I texted, asked you the position, and you'd said it was, you know, kind of quartering away, facing the left. You said that you found the arrow in the brush behind it, and the deer kicked hard. Yeah. I'm thinking that shot may have actually been low and forward, so you would think that it might be a vital shot, but actually caught a bit of the leg and small into the brisket area. Now, that's where the cut would be that was leaving a lot of the blood at first, or when it would lay and pool, either the leg or that brisket area. If that's the case, so that's where it was hit, I think that deer easily recovered and will be fine from that, which is why it would sit for a second, and then it could just keep going. So I don't think I think the deer is still out there, and the deer is going to recover just fine from it.
That's a great observation, and I'm going to say that you're 100% spot on. And I'll tell you that for this reason alone, is that when we were tracking, we found, you know, of course, there's a lot of brush and like small sticks and small trees that have fallen. And we noticed that we saw a lot of blood on the ground as well. But what we also noticed was that we saw a lot of blood on the brush and the trees that were fallen, on those that were 10 inches up in the air that we were walking over. We noticed a lot of marks on there. So what we talked about as we were kind of walking through was, I bet it was a low shot, and it was probably bleeding down its leg, and it was marking those trees as it was trying to walk through there. Mm-hmm. So I bet you're 100% on that.
And again, the pass through, I'm not even sure that it actually fully passed through, because if it jumped a bit, your arrow could have just cut through, and that's why you had some blood, or, you know, it wasn't as much blood as like a full pass through would have been on it, actually on the arrow. So the deer like almost jumped your arrow, but, you know, your broadhead or two of the blades on it actually are what made a slice on it. Instead of going fully through, it just kind of it grazed, but it grazed, you know, a little bit more in.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That Matthew shoots fast, though, so I'm pretty happy about that. I honestly, I think that it jumped from being struck and not from the bow. So I'm so happy shooting that bow. And what it comes down to is I want to do a couple of 3D leagues this winter and next spring and into summer. I don't want to stop shooting at any point in time. I want to just make sure that I never have this sick feeling that I've got right now, and that,
Yeah.
I really just make sure that I get things dialed in. And I was shooting up to 47 or 50 yards just very recently. And that's one of the things that I feel like I'm kind of kicking myself about, is I wish I would have maybe just shot more on an angle. And done some of those things, but it's just the way that it goes, man. It's
my heart breaks for you, man. Like I said, I woke up, the Sunday, my final day of the day that you were out tracking. I woke up before I went out, and I thought of you first, and I was like, I can't imagine that feeling. And if that were me, I wouldn't have slept, and to go through the entire experience. But you had a very different experience than I did hunting. You kind of the same area, doing your thing, and I'm mobile, was working in, and you were seeing a lot of deer. I didn't see anything. So I started out in the piece of public land that I was hunting. I was dabbling my way in. That's the thing of being mobile. I can get into an area one day, kind of sit, observe, see what's going on. So mine actually started the Friday before. So I was ahead of, when you had started, but I went out that Friday just on the ground. And I sat and was observing. It was kind of more of a glassing session. I went in to kind of scout, look for signs, see what I could figure out. And I found an area that I thought was a really good trail, a good run out of some really thick brush that I think would have been good bedding. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to focus on this, and I'm going to kind of poke my way into this. Well, there was also like a trail where people walk at this property that's near that. So I thought, okay, this is great to be close to that, because, again, if people are going to come through, they may flush something out of that down this trail that's going to run right past the area where I am. So I kind of poked my way in. I had some crazy situation that came about last week, too, that I did not get to hunt every day. I was not out as much as I wanted to because, I mentioned me, I'm still dealing with a bit of the effects of the sinus infection, ear infection. Right. My wife got the same thing. She didn't lose her voice, but in part of her ear infection, she had built up so much pressure, she actually ruptured her eardrum. Oh. So I get up on the Tuesday morning, and I knew she was not feeling good, and she's in, some clinical stuff for, her nursing, whatever. Plus she's actually, a doctor's assistant doing some other stuff, but she didn't work. So she just had some like nursing clinical stuff that day. And she's like, I'm not going, it's just not going to happen. So I said, okay, we'll tell you what, you rest. I'll sleep in today, and I'll get up and take our little guy to school. And then I'll go out to the woods for a couple hours, and I'll pick him up from school, and that's how we do it. So I basically went out to just observe. I put the sticks in stand and went close to this bedding areas, I thought, for a couple hours. Didn't see anything but squirrels and chipmunks. All right, so I pulled out, picked a little guy. The next morning, I was like, okay, I'm going for sure. So I got in, and I intended to go a little bit farther down this wood line and in a little bit deeper, but I noticed another guy out there. So the first time I'd run into anyone on this property since I'd been out there, all bow season. So I kind of quick backed off and tucked in, kind of dead between where I was on Tuesday and the first day of Wednesday. And I don't know what the heck kind of tree I picked in the dark of just kind of being rushed into it, but I swear all the bark just wanted to fall off of this freaking tree. So trying to climb it with a lineman's rope or put sticks on it, there was just stuff crashing and falling. And I was like, after I put the first stick on, I'm like, okay, different tree. And then I'm like, well, by the time I get down from this, take this apart, I'm going to make more noise anyway. How will it just get it all over with now, go as quick as possible and get up here? So I don't know if I made so much noise. I never had a chance on Wednesday morning, but again, same thing. Didn't see anything Wednesday. And I'm like, okay, well, I got a couple more days to go about it. Thursday morning, then, when I'm getting ready to go, was when my wife woke up in the middle of the night and had excruciating pain in her ear. And then a while later, she comes and she goes, okay, I've actually got blood coming out of my ear. So that's when she's like, we got to go to the emergency room. So I grabbed her. I'm like, okay, well, let's go to the emergency room. And turns out, again, the ruptured eardrum. So she was out of commission with that. Friday morning, I knew she was not feeling good, too. So I said the same thing. I said, you sleep in. I'll take the little guy out, and then I contacted his Nana. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll pick him up from school. If I can get him a nap after his nap, will you come get him? So Mom keep resting, and then, I'll be back out of the woods. So, it worked out perfectly. He got, his napped, and then Nana was with him for, an hour and a half, and I was home, so Mom didn't have to, because the noises and all that stuff, and having a toddler, it was just not good for her. Yeah. So that Friday evening, that was my first afternoon sit that I'd done in a long time. And I'm thinking, okay, this is pretty good. And you and I were texting back and forth for, throughout the week. I'm like, this is my chance to see some more. I got nothing. And again, this time I went a little bit deeper in. I was on a huge ridge line, so I could see a lot. I think I heard some deer and commotion, something moving off in the distance for me, but I couldn't confirm anything, couldn't see anything. So I thought, okay, for my final morning, I'm going to get out because I knew I was going to stay in Saturday. Sunday morning's my day out. I'm like, I'm going in where I should have been all week. I'm pushing in. It was like a 1.5 mile walk. I busted in there. On the way in, I'm like 150 yards from the truck, and I walk past two does just standing in a wood line next to a cornfield just staring at me. You know, four eyeballs just staring at you. I'm like, well, why am I walking this far? I just grab a tree here and wait. Like, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, no, you got to, this is your plan. This is how you've been hunting this. You're pushing in deeper every time. We're going to get there. Yep. So I get to my spot. I get set up in my tree, and no more than I get into my tree and get all tethered and settled in, and I hear a buck grunt about 50 yards from me. And I can make out kind of like a figure, but I can't see. And, you know, it's before shooting. It was like 20 minutes before shooting light. But I heard the grunt, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good. So we walk past two does. I got a grunt already that close to me. Well, this is going to be good. About 5 minutes later, I hear another grunt seem kind of like down the hill or kind of like, you know, down the way and over another hill. So he definitely was moving away from me towards kind of a swamp area. And I'm like, okay, you know, it's going to happen. Maybe he's going to go bed down there. But at least there's deer that were in the area. 5 minutes after shooting light, three does just come hustling right up a hill. Like it was about 42, 45 yards from me, just hauling right through. I mean, you weren't going to get a shot into the anyway, the fastest they were moving. And I think they were moving into another area that I think is doe bedding, because I think there's kind of like a little low, swampish, thickish area over here. And that's about 100 yards from where I was set up. So I'm like, okay, well, we're sitting pretty good. A little while later, I see a tail kind of through the brush straight out in front of me, probably another about 80 yards away, going away from me. And I'm like, okay, this is shaping up to be really sweet. It's funny you mentioned that when you said that your buck walkthrough is 10:15 on Saturday. Or sorry, 11:15 on Saturday.
11:15.
So time change then for Sunday, it was 10:15 Sunday. And I noticed something coming up kind of that hill where those does all ran through. And it's kind of like just walking, prancing slowly. And I'm like, oh, something's coming. I'm like, okay. And it looked to be like of size. And there was a thicker brush area I had to come through before it kind of came to an opening-ish, you know. I had very limited shooting lanes, you know, in this thicker area that I was. And I thought, just in case, I'm going to draw. So I pull back and I'm held at full draw. And as this thing starts to clear the brush, I see the head. And I don't see any antlers in it, but I just like see like a face and shape of a head. And I'm like, this is a pretty big head. And then as it clears the brush, that rack comes out. I have never seen a deer this big. And we've talked about King, you know, here by the studio. He is the most perfect, most beautiful 10-point. The thing about this deer was different was the size of the body and the fact the base of the antlers, I swear, were the size of White Claw cans. I mean, this was just a thick antlered 10-point. I never thought I'd see something like this in my entire life. And he's standing 40, 42 yards away. I'm already at full draw. I don't want to undraw to then pull rangefinder because, like, I'm thinking this is gonna walk through 40 yards. I know I can shoot 40. And I think when that buck came and I wasn't expecting it, I full on panicked. And I didn't know how to handle myself. I just completely forgot what day it was. Where I got caught up in the moment, and I set on it, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. I can make this shot. I'm gonna do it. And I released, and I think at that moment, I just like everything goes black, and the deer didn't move, but I heard a thud, and then I had that moment of like, what happened? And I look out in a tree in front of me, just a real thin. I mean, it couldn't have been more than 3 inches across this tree. There's my knock. Ding, 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 just bouncing around in the tree. The deer, here's the best part, had no clue. Didn't spook, didn't nothing. He just still stood there and then just slowly trotted back away the distance where those does went. So good news, I didn't spook him. I didn't scare him. I didn't do anything bad. And I thought, okay, maybe he'll come walking back through, grab another arrow, plug it in. We're going to give it 15, 20 minutes, see what happens. As I play back the scenario over and over in my head, you know, as anyone that bow hunts or hunts at all will play back a scenario of something you've botched, I think to myself, if I did have a grunt call, we talked about calls, that is actually one situation where I wouldn't have panicked. I probably would have come undraw, or at least I would have waited till the deer walked away, then came undraw to give some grunts to hope to draw him back in, maybe even get him close, or at least then give myself the chance to settle down, to double check on range, to just get over I wouldn't call it excitement. It was pure shock. I was never expecting to see a deer of that caliber where I was. I'm absolutely mind blown at this animal. And the other part was like, I wish I would have got a picture to show you and wags and anything. Because this is one it was amazing. I'm so just jacked about this deer. I'm going back in after him. And I'm not like I'm the target just that one, but I want to give it another shot and kind of go back in this area because I don't think he's going to move for a while. I think there's enough does in that area. I think he's going to hang, and I think I might get another chance at this year, if nothing else, to at least get a picture. So if he's at 50 yards, whatever, at least I can get a picture to show and to see what this deer is. And after everything happened, with the miss and all this and that, I think back to myself, really at the end of the day, had I harvested the deer, yes, that'd be great. But would it have made this experience any better? I think only slightly. Because I think just everything of how it came about, that I wasn't expecting it, that it took me by surprise, that I botched it, that there was the lessons to be learned of it. I think that was exactly how that scenario was supposed to play out for me. I think I thought I'd never see a deer like that. So I was never supposed to harvest that deer, but there was lessons to be learned in that scenario for myself that now I think are going to make me better and more effective later.
And that's how it always ends up working out for everybody. I mean, I just take that from my experience. It's another situation where I have grown as a hunter. I'll be more confident next time. I'll handle the situation better, and I will feel more prepared when that opportunity comes, that I will be able to make either a better shot, a quicker shot, or something will go differently there where I will be able to make just an all-around better move on that animal then.
Yeah, I think the big man upstairs slid that tree in the way, because I never saw that tree. It was, it came out of nowhere. I mean, it's kind of how it was.
Just grew.
But I think I just flinched. I think I jerked, I flinched, and that's what happened. But I think that tree went there for a reason, and I'm glad that it did. I'm glad that I didn't hit that deer, because I'm afraid with what happened, it would have been the same situation like you. It would have been a wound. It would have been something bad. And I never want to do that. So I'm so much happier that it played out the way that it did than the way that it could have. And next time I won't be surprised. Now that I've had that surprise moment, there's no deer that's ever going to be able to surprise me like that ever again.
You know what, though? I say that too, and it happened to me time and time again. So I talked to my dad one time, and I said, you know what? I got a real good glimpse at what hunting out of a blind, like one of those big, like soundproof, like Wags has got the redneck blinds, because it's all visual then. You don't hear anything. It's all visual. So you constantly have to be on alert. We had a couple of days where the wind was gusting up to about 20 or 25 miles an hour. It's like I wouldn't hear a deer until it was within view. There's no way that I would have any idea that it's coming, because there's so much of this peripheral noise that I wouldn't have any idea until I actually laid eyes on the deer, which gives me a little more of a panic, because, I mean, I'm out to maybe... in one spot, it's like 75 yards. One spot, it's like 60 yards. One spot, it's maybe 40 yards at the most. And then there's a couple lanes that I can see through that are farther than that. But if I don't see them well in advance, it turns into a little bit of a panic scenario, and you got to make it happen. And it just, I don't know, man. It just, you can always be surprised in the woods. That's what I would say.
Yeah, and, you mentioned the wind stuff. There was at one point, I think it was like Tuesday, Wednesday. I was out. I swear this one tree decided to drop all of its leaves in that day, but it was the way that it was blowing and the leaves were falling and hitting the ground. It was to the exact same tempo and pattern of something walking through the leaves. So like you always felt like something was walking, and it was like nothing's there. So you eventually just become like tone deaf to that, which, that last day that, I had that book come out for me. What I started doing that day, you mentioned the panic of, not necessarily being able to hear everything. I found myself at times, if I'd hear anything, I was like, that might be, I just would have my release latched on, and I was just there. Like I said, I kind of had already ranged, knowing this tree is this, knowing this, that, I'm only going to shoot for that. I knew what I refer to as my circle of death. I knew what everything was, my 20-yard circle. If anything was in that 20-yard circle, I don't care. I don't need to, I know it's in the circle of death. But I knew the other outlets of kind of roughly how far they were, so I just locked on. So exactly what happened when I saw that body coming through and it got through the thick brush, I could just quick pull up, and I was already set. I didn't have to worry about having a release bang into something. I was already locked in. It was just pick up bow, pull back, and I'm already set to go. I don't know if that was right or wrong, that I would do that, because safety wise, you probably shouldn't do things like that, but what else am I going to do? And I was sitting with my bow in my lap the whole time. I'm not, my bow was always with me because of that. I was kind of always on the ready. I did one night sit with my bow strapped to the tree, but I didn't like it. I like to have it kind of more at the ready and, the stand that I sit in.
I noticed that in one of the pictures you sent me because I'm always a hanging on the tree kind of guy, which I think back to my scenario where if I was facing the other direction and I did actually see that buck come out, that's one of my other thoughts that I had was that buck had no idea that I was there. I was facing away, so I was able to very quickly and easily not quickly, but very stealthily and easily grab my bow, get locked on, and get all of those things in place. Whereas if I was facing the other way, I could have very easily spooked it because it could have saw me move. Mm-hmm. So maybe I wouldn't have even had a shot at it. And it's just, there's so many things that I think through in all of these different scenarios where it's like, man, if this would have gone this way or this would have gone that way. But at the end of the day, bow hunting is so damn hard. And that's what always keeps bringing us back to doing this over and over again is your encounter that you had, me having this opportunity, me sharing these experiences with my dad. And, man, it's such a cool thing to do. And it's just, I don't know. It's not like anything else. You can't really explain it.
No, but just the difference of the way that we hunt and the way that it came out, it all came out the same, basically. I mean, to some extent at the end, like we both had some cool experiences, saw some cool stuff. I'm glad that you did manage to harvest a doe. At least you got something.
Yeah.
I'm still riding nothing on the tags, but I think that's going to change soon. I think I've finally worked my way into something, and that's just it. I said to my wife when I got home, why I love bow hunting so much is the sport of that. It's the chess match, the constant working at things. If that were a gun hunt, no doubt I would have harvested the biggest deer I've ever seen in my life. Like there was not a question that deer would have been easily but I don't like it that way. I like the game of it. I like the fun of it. I love having that animal in that close. It was so amazing. So cool.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm really excited for gun season because I know for sure I'll be able to take a deer then. But, we'll have 2 buck tags. We've still got one of our antlerless tags that we're able to fill. So my dad kept telling me the whole way home, you know what? We're going to have 3 deer on the back of this thing when we're coming home from gun season. I'm not worried about it. We'll have more than enough deer. And, I don't know, man. It's about so much more than that, though, too. I mean, just so many great times that I was able to share with my uncles, and just being able to spend that time with my dad. I mean, there's just nothing like that.
That's what it's all about.
I'm always going to be thankful for that.
Absolutely. That's a big part of our show is the camaraderie, and we hope you join us again next week right here, 97.3 The Game. Of course, we got more on demand, the iHeartRadio app. Just search out Tailgate Talk. For Tasker, Wags out this week. We'll catch you next week.